Hello, Jason. It's Thursday, April 3rd, and today I'm wearing a cool, funky hat. Why? Because I want to. I don't need another reason, do I? I mean, it's definitely not because I have really messy hair because I had a nap today, so just leave it alone, okay? I can't decide if I like it better more straight or sideways or the other sideways or backwards. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be working, so messy hair it is. Actually, now that I look at it, wearing the hat sort of seems to have fixed most of it. That worked. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about the exciting literary and linguistic field of semiotics. In your previous video, you talked about the fact that when some TV shows end, it's a really fulfilling experience, whereas other TV shows ending, it's more of a yearning for more episodes experience. And in my opinion, semiotics provides a very good framework for explaining why this happens. Really briefly, all you need to know about semiotics is that it's the understanding of the relationship between a signifier and a signified. In the first type of show, by the time that all of the episodes have aired, you've gotten answers to every variable in the equation. The relationship between the signifier and the signified then is completely solid. There's only one answer. And really, when you think about it, this is a very practical approach to making television. Bit by bit, you reveal information until the entire picture is available to be viewed. What you end up with is one complete step-by-step progression from point A to point B, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Consider reality competition shows like Survivor or sports broadcasts. It's just a progression from beginning to end and seeing how it plays out. But once you know what happens, there's pretty much no point to watching it again. You've already seen the progression from unknown to known. That's it. In these cases, the show being over is just a matter of procedure, and so there's no real reason to lament the completion. Watching them once, quite frankly, was enough. By contrast, though, there are TV shows that purposely leave out specific bits of information. And so by the time that every episode is aired, there are still mysteries that need solving, still variables that need to be balanced in order for the equation to make sense. And I can really think of no better example of this type of show than Lost. In fact, in a previous video when I was talking about Lost, I referenced a TED Talk given by Lost creator J.J. Abrams. In his TED Talk, he makes an argument for the necessity of mystery in creating good television and entertainment. And as part of his argument, he tells a story about going into a magic shop with his grandfather when he was a kid. At this magic shop, his grandfather bought him this mystery box that supposedly contained $60 worth of magic tricks, though it only cost $30. And it came in this big wooden box with a question mark painted on it. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, I would have been so eager to open that up and see what value I got for the $30. But not J.J. Abrams. To this day, he has not opened that box of magic tricks because he believes that having the box is more important than knowing what's inside. In fact, if he doesn't open the box, there could be literally anything in there. Whatever he could imagine could be in that box. But once you do open the box, you settle the signified. You know what's in the box, and all of those other possibilities go away. And so the fun of a show like Lost is that once the show's over, there are still a number of variables which are left to be solved, and you can solve them any way that makes sense to you. And this, I believe, leads to a much more engaged audience and much more participation in viewing. In both types of TV shows, though, while they're running, the fun is in trying to guess what variables will be and then seeing if, when the show plays out, your guess was correct. And where How I Met Your Mother ran into trouble with a lot of viewers is in the fact that at the very end, they revealed that the equation wasn't what you thought it was. In this case, it was a bit like a two-stage equation. You solved for X, How I Met Your Mother, but then had to use the information that you gained along the way to solve for Y, who Ted ends up with. Now, as you can tell from my previous video, and as I can tell from your previous two videos, I really enjoyed the ending. I didn't feel betrayed by the writers, but I can understand why some people did. And all I can hope is that, upon reviewing, they're able to see the new equation as the purposeful equation in the show as a whole. And then maybe they'll see that the show is legend, wait for it. Moving on to challenge progress, I promised that I would review the two books that I finished recently in this video, and I will, starting with Pet Sematary by Stephen King. Now, when I was reading Pet Sematary, I was constantly reminded of the fact that Stephen King is an amazing writer. He's able to take what should, by all rights, be an extremely boring story and make it exciting for almost 400 pages. The book follows Louis Creed, his wife, and his two children as they move out into the country in order for him to take a new job at a university. Thanks to the help of their elderly neighbor Judd Crandall, they discover that there's a pet cemetery on their property, a place where children go to bury their pets. But beyond the pet cemetery is something significantly more disturbing, and I won't spoil what that is, even though I'm sure most people know this story by now. Due to a series of unfortunate events, Lewis ends up going to this beyond place and making some very poor decisions, which come back to bite him in the ass. So basically, it's a fairly typical Stephen King novel, where a troubled character makes a poor decision which comes back to haunt him. Aside from the beginning of the book, which mostly just describes the Creed family as they move into their new house, I was entertained throughout this entire book. And like I said, Stephen King's writing really stands out in this novel, more so at least than the other two of his novels that I've read, The Shining and Carrie. Not that they aren't really well written too, because they are. And so from an entertainment perspective, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, while from a literary value, mostly because of the writing more so than any grand ideas brought up by the book, I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5. After Pet Sematary, I read The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And I have a conflicted opinion about this book, because at points, it bordered on greatness. There were entire sections of this book that I read and thought to myself, this is the type of novel that I would like to write. Unfortunately, there were also large sections of this book that sort of felt like amateur young adult fiction to me. I know that one of John Green's goals is attempting to bring the modern age into storytelling, but in this book, a lot of it seems like trying to pander to young people. Things like breaking away from the narrative to present text messages back and forth, verbatim. In those sections, I felt like John Green could have done a much better job of integrating technology into the book. And so the book as a whole was this jarring experience of going back and forth between potential greatness and amateur young adult fiction. And so if you want to read a John Green book, my recommendation is still that you read Looking for Alaska. It's just, as a whole, a much better book. From an entertainment perspective, I'm going to give The Fault in Our Stars a 3 out of 5. And from a literary perspective, I'm going to give it a 2. And now, Battleship. G5 was a miss, and I'm going to attack A7. Dairy.